All right, welcome Washington families. It's great to have you here on board. We're going to be spending the next 45 minutes or so together to give you some good information and an orientation about how we're going to be starting for our year. So I'm just going to give folks a little bit of time to come on board, and I see folks are joining us. When you saw the link on our website, there was also a link to a Google form, and then on that Google form, you could ask questions. And so we've been updating our Q&A that's also on our website to answer those questions from the Google form. So again, if you have questions while we're talking, you can enter them in the Google form. And then if you click on our website and go under the parent link, you'll see that we have some updates about opening 2021. We have our master schedule. We'll be adding additional information to that link for opening 2021. And we'll have student supplies and other resources posted on Friday. But also we have a Q&A form. Again, that's going to the website, going to the parent link. And then when you click under that parent drop down, it has opening 2021. And we're trying to put as many resources there in one spot so you can access. So, all right, so let's get to it. We got a lot of questions, and I know people are excited and can't wait to start the new year of learning at Washington, and we're really looking forward to having you and your child on board. So I'm going to run through a number of key areas that will hopefully help orient you and prepare you and your child for a great year of teaching and learning. So I'll start with the number one question. Mr. Grant, is there staggered entry for kindergarten students? No, there is no staggered entry because all students in grades K through 5 are starting out their year learning remotely. That means they're learning from home and the teaching is happening through a device just like we're communicating right now. So that's true for kindergarten students through 5th grade students. Monday, August the 17th is the first day of teaching and learning. I will be here at school, but I will be lonely. Please don't drop off, however, your child at school, because teachers are either teaching from home or their classrooms. Kids do not come to school on August the 17th to our building, but they are attending school virtually through our Google Classrooms and other platforms that we're using to communicate. Parents have often been asking, Mr. Grant, what do I do in order to help provide childcare for my child? And that's one of the big challenges with this remote learning, which is how do we do our own jobs or take care of our own home needs while at the same time navigating our children who are learning throughout the day. And as you've been hearing about all summer, the learning that we're going to be doing in the coming year that is all virtual until we learn differently is going to be much more rigorous and extensive than it was in the spring. And that does present challenges because it's going to require your child to be engaged really from around 9 until mid-afternoon, 2 or 3, depending on what type of services they're receiving or when they're having an elective. And that will be a challenge for families. So my goal is to help outline a little bit of what that looks like today, as well as let you know when you're going to get more resources that will enable you to plan for supporting your child online. But first of all, the YMCA is working with families in the community to provide childcare while students are doing this remote learning. We also have a Boys and Girls Club on site. Miss Emma Benedict is the director of our Boys and Girls Club. Her telephone number is 919-518-9609. Again, that's 919-518-9609. And Miss Benedict is still accepting members to the Boys and Girls Club. The Boys and Girls Club will be open from 8 to 5, and their staff will be helping to facilitate the online learning of students who are enrolled in the club. So it's a good option if you're looking for a way to help have childcare and support that online learning that's going to be taking place. Families have been asking, Mr. Grant, I still need a device. What do I do? Well, Washington's fortunate to have an assistant principal intern again this year. That's Amanda Morton. She's also our virtual academy coordinator. She's doing a lot of the technology coordination for the school. If you email Ms. Morton at amorton@wcpss.net. Again, that's amorton@wcpss.net. You can let Mrs. Morton know if you still need a device, or if you have questions about do we have the proper information for device pickup for your child. She's the contact. A lot of these answers that I'm providing now, you can find by going to our website and click on the parent link, and in the drop-down box from the parent link, you're going to see a number of resources that we're in the process of uploading for you. One of those that's currently active is our Q&A site. So when you ask these different questions, I go and I put your question in that Q&A box, and then you can go and look there for the answers. So go on that Q&A site, maybe right now while you're at home watching this live, and you can see some answers to some of those questions. Plus, if I speak too quickly, you can get the information by looking at the Q&A form under the parent link for opening 2021. Parents have been wondering, what is it exactly going to look like around teaching and learning, and what's the master schedule? Well, our master schedule is posted on the school website. So you can, again, go to the parent link, go to the drop-down box, go to the opening 2021, and you'll see that information there. Now, that is a pretty set schedule because we are doing real teaching and learning during the year. In order to do that, we have to set up things like electives and have students who receive services like push-in services for an IEP to get support from a special ed teacher. And in order to do all that, we need to operate like a regular school year where we have a schedule where kids are engaged in a specific learning area at a certain time in order for us to work together to educate your child. So that schedule is pretty tight, but the important thing to know within that schedule, when it says live teaching, I want to spend a little bit of time helping you to kind of wrap your head around what does live teaching mean, because there's about 2.5 hours a day in every child's schedule that has live teaching. And we're going to be moving into that over the first 2 weeks of school, called our orientation, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But that 2.5 hours of live teaching that you have every day means that those will be opportunities for your child to engage with a teacher. And when they're engaging with a teacher, it could be like what I'm doing right now. I'm presenting information to you, and you're sitting there paying really careful attention to what I'm talking about. But then after I give that overview, it could be 5 minutes or 10 minutes, think about a typical learning situation that your child would be in during a typical year, which is teacher presents them information, and then the teacher is moving around the classroom, supporting kids, working with small groups, maybe pulling a group to a table and teaching them a small group literacy lesson, or the students themselves are collaborating together while the teacher is working one-on-one. Well, the same type of learning is going to happen in the virtual classroom. Now, it could start with a recording of a teacher presenting some information, or it could be the teacher streaming live, like I am right now. The students, after getting that, might start working on tasks, and then the students are going to get pulled into a group to work with the teacher. That's just done remotely. So the teacher would say, Shanika, Tommy, and Ameda, I want you to go to this Google link, and we're going to get in a Google Meet, and we're going to be working on this set of problems or this reading activity. That's how you pull a small group while other kids are doing their work at the same time. They're just not in that Google Meet. So you can see during a 45-minute block of time, it might start with teacher talking and delivering, the teacher then doing breakout and working in small groups and one-on-one. But every child in that classroom does not necessarily mean that they're engaged on the screen with the teacher at that point. But that is a live teaching block. And again, that mirrors what teaching looks like in a typical classroom day. You'll have about 45 minutes of language arts instruction, about 40 minutes of math instruction. This is live. Again, live instruction could be the teacher engaging directly with you, Or the student could be working on activities and the teacher through Google Classroom can make comments on that child's document, can interact with the child through something like a Flipgrid or another way of getting feedback from a child. But you will have a total of 2.5 hours during the day, and then you'll have about another 2.5 hours that your child will be doing different learning activities. We've got a fancy word for that. It's called asynchronous. And asynchronous means it's not live. Your child is able to work on that independent of a teacher. Now that asynchronous time could be, for example, your child on the computer engaged with the math program that we've been using the past year across Wake County called Dreambox. And they're working on a sort of a self-paced math program. Asynchronous learning could also be the student has had a chance to watch a short video clip of a teacher explaining how to build a teen number using a tens frame. And then the student has a tens frame at home with some manipulatives, and they're working on that. That's independent of the computer. That's this old-fashioned working with your fingers and working with some little chips, and then using your tens frame. So it doesn't have to be device-based during that practice or asynchronous time. That ties into a couple of things I'm going to talk about, which is how do I get these things, Mr. Grant, like the tens frame and the chips, and I'll talk about how we're going to deliver those to you. But I first want to talk a little bit more about the orientation the first 2 weeks of school. So we talked about this master schedule, which again, if you're not sure what that is, you can go onto our website under the parent link, click on Opening 2021, and you'll click on the master schedule, and that gives a breakdown by grade level. What's happening within those blocks of time will differ depending on the point of the year that we're doing virtual learning, and it will differ a little bit by grade level. But again, when it says live, that's the time that a child needs to be on their device to be able to engage. But during the first 2 weeks of school, we're going to be doing several things to help set your child up for success. It's really no different than the way that we normally start the school year. Because when we normally start the school year, we're building relationships. We're helping to develop learning routines. We're working on social emotional learning. We're helping students to understand what am I learning? What materials do I need to use to do that learning? How do I collaborate and engage with others? Well, all those things will need to happen in a virtual environment. Because remember, every child in Wake County is starting out with virtual remote learning from home for the first portion of the school year. No set date has been set when students are going to return, but we're anticipating minimally 4 to 6 weeks, could be longer, that all students will be doing that, whether they're signed up as Plan B or they're signed up as Virtual Academy. And we'll talk a bit more about Virtual Academy and Plan B in a few minutes. But with that orientation, those 2 weeks, we want to build your child's stamina. We want to help make sure they're comfortable navigating in that environment. We want to help you as a parent not to pull out all of your hair because it's confusing on how to navigate the system. So we're going to spend time going slowly, getting you oriented, while teachers work sometimes individually or in small groups with kids. So when we look at the 2.5 hours a day of live teaching and 2.5 hours a day of this asynchronous practice, we won't necessarily have 2.5 hours a day for the first week or two of school. It might be reduced time those first 2 weeks as we're helping to get students prepared. But one of the key things that we want to do is we want to help get students and families oriented to when do I need to be present and engaged for that live learning. So we will be sticking to some of those time blocks. Although it might be a normal 40-minute math lesson that's live, the first week or two, it might be a 10 or a 15-minute lesson. And it might not even fully engage math. It might be doing some social emotional work that we're doing, but we're helping you to understand I need to be present during that time. You're thinking about, Mr. Grant, I'm going to be doing this virtual learning. How am I going to have these resources? So the second week of school, now this coming week, August the 17th, is the first day of school. The second week of school, August the 25th through 27th, we're scheduling time slots for your child and you to drive up to the school and pick up materials in much the same way we did the end of the year when we sent home materials and you came, we all got to wave and say hi, because we really miss you and we want to have a chance to connect, although we just can't do it inside our building because of social distancing. Your teachers will send home a grade level packet this Friday afternoon. I'll send it out through a school messenger, and that packet is going to have a lot of information that I'm going to go through in just a few moments. But one of the things you'll have in that packet is the scheduled time that you will be driving through the carpool to pick up materials and supplies and to meet your grade level team. Again, that's the second week of school, August the 25th through the 27th. And when you come through, we'll be giving you things such as expeditionary learning or EL books and workbooks that your child will be reading. And remember, we still have good old-fashioned books that your kid can hold. It doesn't have to be digital, although of course they'll be doing digital learning as well. But we'll get those books in your kids' hands. We're going to get them math materials and manipulatives. And there's going to be some additional supplies that we're going to send home later in September, because those are all being ordered by the district. But we're going to make sure that you're set up for success. And in that mailing packet that's coming home on Friday, teachers are going to list some things that would be helpful for you to have at home to support your child's learning. If you are not getting emails from me, because I've been sending out through school messengers lots of different materials over the last week, and you're like, Mr. Grant, I got your phone call, but I didn't get the email. That might be because we don't have your email, or it's possible that your email is not correctly entered in our school database. And I want to make sure that you're getting that information. It's more critical than ever. So if you have not gotten an email the last several days, such as that amazing video that I did with our PTA president, Kim Olds, and our two vice presidents, Jessica Dixon and Jessica Jeffries, then send me an email today, bgrant@wcpss.net, and say, Mr. Grant, I'm not getting your emails because we want to get you set up correctly in the system. If you've already done that this week, don't worry, we got you. We're getting it corrected. But if you haven't notified me, please send me that email. All right. I'm going to turn it over for a few minutes to Mrs. Wilkinson, and she's going to help prepare you for elective registration and talk about some of the great things that we are doing this school year. Ms. Wilkinson.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Hello, families. We are so excited to start our school year with you and to get back into a routine. I'm not sure if some of you were the same as my household, but I'm really excited about some structure and what that's going to look like. And I'm sure that that will be the same for you as well. So I want to go over just a little bit about our magnet theme implementation for Washington students. We're going to talk a little bit about our goals from the county, as far as it's our job to provide a relevant and engaging education for your child, where they're going to be able to communicate and collaborate, and we're going to be able to find and nurture their gifts and talents. And that is our hope, that through our elective program, that we're still going to get to participate in those. Some big pieces for ours is we still want to offer students choice. We feel like that's really important for engagement, as well as students being able to choose what they're interested in. And our teachers are wonderful about implementing our core standards of reading, writing, and math, social studies, and science into those electives, so they're getting exactly what they need for that particular grade level. As we're moving through these uncharted waters, our electives are going to be a little different than they have been in the past. And that's because we have several different factors to consider. First of all, we know that all of our students are going to be in a virtual environment for at least the first 4 weeks of school, if not longer. And then there's going to be that transition of Plan B back in. 77% of our population here at Washington has opted for remote learning. So on any given day, that means that 90% of our population is going to be in a virtual environment. So that was a big consideration for us as we're trying to plan out what electives are going to look like for this first quarter. So for the first quarter, elective registration is going to occur during the first 2 or 3 days of school, which is a little different. Usually we give you that course description guide and you have a little bit longer to look at it, and we're registering students one-on-one. In the document that has been linked, that Ms. Paul linked with the live video stream, you have a link to the presentation. And at the very bottom, there is a list of the electives that are going to be offered for each grade level. On Friday, in that link that your teacher is going to be getting, there will be a course description guide. We're currently working with our teachers to make sure that we're getting all of the materials listed that will be needed, and then those that are coming home from the school. We're going to hopefully have all that ready for you in the course description guide. But the list at the bottom today will give you an idea of what those electives are. Typically, our electives are multi-age, and we have K1 electives, 2, 3, 4, 5. With our structure that we're creating for this schedule for right now, we're only registering for the first quarter. And our goal is to create balanced classes. So our registration priority will be the same as it has been in the past. Fifth grade will register first, followed by fourth, third, second, and then first. So students will be registered by their grade level. It does not matter how quickly they do it. It will be on a predetermined schedule by their teacher, and then we will flip-flop that registration when we register again for second quarter this year. So hopefully students will get that highest priority. If they were not first to register first quarter, then maybe they'll be first to register second quarter out of their grade level. As far as our elective times, our electives are going to run for 6 full weeks and a little bit different. They're going to run Monday through Friday, August the 31st through October the 9th. For each student, each student will have one elective in grades 1st through 5th. Our first grade elective first quarter will run about 25 to 30 minutes. Our second through 5th grade electives will run 40 to 45 minutes. And those will be live instructional times that they will be in with their teacher. But just like Mr. Grant said, that's going to look different on a daily basis. For our kindergarten students, we're not having an elective first quarter as they're focusing on using our online platform and transitioning to school. Typically, we have kindergarten students join an elective late in the first quarter, and we don't usually start those electives until mid-October. So things are working out a little bit that same way for them not to have an elective first quarter as they're getting used to school and routines. The elective times for first grade are 11 to 11:30. For second grade students, 12:45 to 1:25. Third grade from 1:30 to 2:10. And then our fourth and fifth graders will be in electives from 2:15 until 3. Ms. Paul. Thank you. So for our elective format, we will be using Google Classroom as the platform for instruction. So you will get a code to join the Google Classroom for your child's elective. And within that Google Classroom, there will be a Google Meet where they will join each day for the live instruction. The schedule will be posted there and as well as their work. And that's where you're going to be receiving feedback from those teachers as well. For our third, fourth, or fifth grade students who are interested in joining band, you can complete the registration form if you're in this document, and this will also be posted on our website. We'll not be offering band as an elective first quarter, but we're hoping to have it be available for second quarter. For students who are in orchestra and you're a third grade student, if you will be so kind as to complete the registration form. First quarter orchestra for our beginning orchestra students will consist of an introduction to the instruments, rhythms, how to read music, and skills that they're going to need to be able to play successfully. Specific instruments will not be assigned during that first 6-week period, but those will be assigned later, and you can pick up, we'll have pickups for instruments for those in continuing or advanced orchestra if you turn those back into the school. For students in continuing orchestra in for 4th and 5th graders, those who were in beginning last year, your class will take place from 2:15 to 2:55 each day, Monday through Friday. And then for our 4th and 5th graders who are in advanced orchestra, those classes will take place from 3 to 3:40 each day, Monday through Friday. I know one of the big questions I keep getting is Odyssey of the Mind, theater production, science Olympiad. I'm going to throw the spelling bee in there with that too, are all programs and electives that we offer here at Washington, and we're really excited to be able to offer those things. Currently, right now, we're waiting for more information to be released from the governing body of several of those to see what they are going to be requiring for next year. Our hope is to be able to offer those electives, but a lot will just depend on our environment. So at the very bottom of this document, you'll see that list of electives for fall 2020. And again, this will be posted on the website, and a detailed course description will be sent with your child's welcome letter that they'll get on Friday. We're so very excited to be able to offer electives in this virtual format, and we really hope that your children enjoy their choices. Back to Mr. Grant.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Wilkinson. What an outstanding job our school staff has been doing over the last several months. Teachers don't actually come back until tomorrow, but I've been having people in the building here working to support and get things up and running and to make sure that we're getting to you the materials that you need. I know that they're not quickly enough because you're trying to plan and you're thinking about your weeks ahead. And please know that we're working as hard as possible to make sure that you have those materials as we have teachers coming back on board. So a couple of pieces to touch base on, and then I've got my computer because I'm reading live the different questions that you're putting into our Google form, and I want to make sure that I can answer those. But the piece about our team mailing packet. So teachers officially come back tomorrow, and on Friday, which is the 14th, I will be sending to you through School Messenger, why it's important to have your email correct, a welcome packet from your grade level team. And an important piece to remember again is you're going to have a team of people working to help your child to learn and grow. And really, in many ways, that's not different this year because at Washington, we are a large family that grows and supports your child because we have electives and you have different elective teachers, and teachers often work collaboratively on a team to share groups of students to provide differentiated instruction, or sometimes we partner teacher teams where one person does a certain content like math or science and another person does language arts and social studies. So students are used to working with multiple teachers, and this coming year is no different. Whether you're in virtual academy or your Plan B, the likelihood is you're going to be working with multiple teachers over the course of your year, whether it's through electives or whether it's through the delivery of content at your child's grade level. One thing I can assure, whether you're Plan B or virtual academy, you will be taught by a Washington teacher. So we've worked really hard to help make sure that we continue to have that strong connection between our Washington teaching staff and your family and your child. So the teaching team will be sending home this packet through a school messenger email on Friday, and it's going to have a lot of really important information. It's going to have a team welcome letter from the team. It's going to have a schedule that outlines the first 2 weeks of orientation and what that will look like, because that will be different than the normal schedule that we have starting the 3rd week of school. It's going to have a short video from the team where they're going to meet and greet you. It's going to have some of the guidelines and expectations for virtual learning and learning in general. It will have some helpful information about how you can access and move within Google Classroom. And I actually have a link again under the Washington website. Go to the parent drop-down box, look at opening 2021, and there's a technology guide that gives you a lot of great information. Please don't do what I do. Sometimes if I get something, it's like it's a new toy or new device, I just open it up and start playing with it, and then I can't figure it out, and then I just ask someone to tell me how to do it rather than reading the directions. If you're one of those people, don't do that. Take time to read some of these resources and then contact the school or ask your teacher if you need some help. In that information packet, there's going to be some information that we're not able to provide you because it's a general welcome to that whole grade level. But we need to be able to get to you and your child's specific access codes that you'll be using during the year. So your child's homeroom teacher will be sending you a separate email sometime between Friday afternoon and noon on Sunday. So I've asked all staff to, between Friday afternoon and noon on Sunday, to send an individualized email from the homeroom teacher, again saying, I'm your homeroom teacher, welcome to Mr. or Mrs. Blank's class. And they're going to be providing you things like their Google Classroom login code. They're going to be making sure that you have your child's Wake ID and user ID number. And then if you're a Washington family that's been here, you know that we use Dojo, and you have an individual access code for Dojo. And Dojo is simply an app that we use to facilitate communication like texting back and forth between home and school, so you can communicate with the classroom teacher. So those will be important. So that's going to be a separate document. I can't send those out to you en masse because it's confidential information. But again, that will come sometime in a separate email between Friday afternoon and Sunday at noon. So you'll make sure that you have that and you're prepared to log in and do what you need to do in order to facilitate that teaching and learning. I'm now going to go to the live questions that are populating. Mr. Grant, I like your tie. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. What a nice response. And let's go on to some other questions. This person says, I thought when I was looking at the kindergarten schedule, there were closer to 4 hours versus 2.5 hours of learning. Did I read that incorrectly? And it's challenging to kind of navigate that schedule. So it is inaccurate that we have more than 2.5 hours of live instruction. There is 2.5 hours of live instruction, typically that your child will be getting. But reading that schedule, it's a little bit ambiguous. Your classroom teachers and grade level teachers will give you more specifics about those schedules when you get that mailing packet. But one thing that I think is important to have clarity around is there's several blocks of time, and I'm just going to look at the master schedule here that I'm talking, and I'm going to go to, for example, the kindergarten schedule. Sometimes it says live instruction, but for kindergarten, I know, for example, when they have live instruction, it's small group practice where they may be designating times within that block so they can work with a smaller group of students. So it might be a 30 to 45-minute block, but the kindergarten team and your child's teacher will say, I really need your child to be online during this portion of that time each day. And that's because we're wanting to individualize instruction for your child and make sure that we make that connection. Because trying to teach a room full of 20 kindergartners who are all looking at a screen, that's not really that productive. But to be able to meet and engage in a small group setting, our kindergarten team is amazing. And I just got to notice that my battery's running low, so I'm going to make sure that we can finish here quickly. So the master schedule is a little bit hard to read, but yes, you have 2.5 hours of instruction. I hope we don't lose my recording in the last few moments as I go through your question. Can parents be with their child while they're taking online classes? Yes, they can. Obviously, we'll be having assessments later on. You do not want to answer those questions yourselves, but you can be there. In fact, it will be really beneficial the first several weeks to help your child get oriented. How will specials and electives work? All right. That's a prime example of what can happen during virtual learning. So sorry for the interruption. I know that we have a few people that are back on board with us. It was actually a very simple virtual learning problem. The battery went dead, but we got a second device and we're up and running again. So I just want to thank you for being patient and working with us through this virtual learning. I still want to have the chance to take questions from you. So if you are if you're having questions, please go ahead and put them in the Google form, because Mrs. Ratley is in the process of getting those questions to me. So can parents be with their child while they're taking the online class? Yes, they can. And again, it's often helpful to have children getting a parent support while they're in the online learning session. Our goal is during the orientation 2 weeks is to help them to be more independent. This question came from my child. The iStation wasn't working. We put that response in the Q&A site. There's a link that you can go to get technology support. You may have heard that iStation is, again, going to be the assessment program of choice that Wake County will be using. We're not starting out doing any assessments the first week or two, but we will be implementing assessments as we progress into the second quarter. A person asked, how do I register my child for electives? Students will be getting elective registration information that's being sent home by Mrs. Wilkinson, and she will be working to register children for during the first week of school. Band will not start until the second quarter, but you will be able to indicate that you wish to take band. Immunization forms. So kindergarten parents still need to submit immunization forms. There's a link in our Q&A where you can send an email to our data manager, Mrs. Webb, in order to get an immunization form sent to you, and then you can send her back that completed immunization form, even if you're learning remotely, which we all are. Let's see, what other questions do we have? What time does schooling start? School will start at 9 a.m. for all the different grade levels. And then you'll again be getting a more individualized schedule from your teachers when you get the teaching mailing packet this Friday. Let's see, any other new questions that are coming in that come to mind? Again, if you have a question, you can ask that question through the Google form link. Mrs. Ratley, do we have any new questions?
Kindergarten selected for SSA, how is the schedule after attending classes with older students catching up in his own class?
So families are asking about SSA. Students who were currently enrolled in SSA in the 1920 school year will continue with SSA instruction. Students that are in grades 1st through 5th grade can request to have SSA testing through by sending an email to Mr. Bastin. That's ABASTIN at WCPSS.net. And Mrs. Ratley will put that email address in there as well, abastin at WCPSS.net. Email Mr. Bastin that you're interested in SSA testing. Kindergarten students do not have SSA, but students in 1st grade can move into 2nd grade for language arts or math for teaching and learning, and as well as 2nd graders to 3rd grade, 3rd grade to 4th grade, 4th grade to 5th grade, and then 5th grade historically has done the online math program, which they would continue to be able to do. We will assess students during after this 10-day window that parents can request during the opening of school. We will assess students after that, and then any new SSA students will then be placed forward into the classrooms that they placed into either for language arts or for math. Okay, a family was asking about attendance and how that works. So currently the state guidance around attendance is that students can be counted as being in school for multiple ways. Those ways include a teacher has seen the student participate in a Google Meet. A student is seen working on a document that day related to that day's instruction. A teacher has, had a phone conversation with the family or student, and they're communicating about that day's learning. And then lastly, a student submitting a piece of work that was from that day of learning as evidence that they did that work that day, then that can count as being present. So those are all ways of being counted as present. And teachers will look at the different times that students engage during the day, but you don't have to be, for example, online for the total amount of time and we're constantly recording what that is. It means that we have evidence that you participated in some way. Any other questions that are popping up, Ms. Ratley? Parents asking about a bus schedule. So no students will be riding the bus to or from school until Plan B students come back. Now, the county has been talking about once students return, if they're scheduled Plan B students, that they will be in different groups, an A, B, or C cohort for Plan B. The county is in the process of assigning those students to the cohorts, but we need to make sure that those student cohorts are aligned with the student groupings of students in middle and high school. So we have not passed out the information about the cohort groups because at this point, the students are not coming into school. It's not until students return, which is going to be at some point to the middle or end of their first quarter or beyond, that students would then start coming in if they are Plan B students for 1 week while doing 2 weeks of remote learning. So those cohort groups are really inconsequential at this point, and we want to make sure that we get those set up correctly so students who were at different levels, elementary, middle, and high school, in families are in that same cohort, or potentially families that need to be carpooling and doing other things together, we'll get that set up. So we'll continue to communicate with you about that, but don't be looking for your cohort group designation if you're a Plan B student in the near future, and it's not necessary for anything that you need to do until we start coming back and begin this Plan B rotation of a week in and 2 weeks out. Remember, when kids in Plan B are doing virtual learning, they're doing the same type of learning that our virtual academy students are doing. And we're doing all that same type of learning right now as we start the school year all virtually. So we're all learning virtually, and then at some point, some students will transition back into the building and they'll continue learning while they're in the building the same content the online learners are working on as well. Any other new questions?
How many students will be in each virtual?
So class numbers will differ. You're going to have an assigned homeroom teacher. If you think about how we assign students, for example, in a 5th grade classroom, often we have teaching teams. They have a set homeroom, but then they're being taught by multiple teachers. Virtual academy numbers are going to be similar to what the class size ratios are for any given grade level as outlined by the state. But where students are learning at any given point in a virtual learning world could vary by being in a small group with very few students or a larger classroom. But by and large, virtual academy sizes mirror Plan B, although we're having to configure grade levels in different ways to support this mixture of Plan B students in virtual academy, and also the need to have everybody receiving the same type of instruction by our teachers for this first part of the school year. All right, any other new questions popping up, Ms. Ratley?
If they're traveling out of town until school starts, they will be able to access their kids' information online.
So if you are out of town until August the 17th, you will be able to access your child's information online. Again, you'll be accessing through Google Classroom, and teachers will be sending out that information to you through a personal email sometime between Friday afternoon, the 14th of August, and by noon, the 16th of August. All right, any last few questions? And I appreciate our dedicated core of 30 people who got me through our battery failure and allowed us to continue our live streaming production here. So thank you, the 31 dedicated people. Mrs. Ratley, any final questions? Great. So again, to wrap up, this Friday afternoon, you will receive a school messenger email. It will be a welcome from your grade level team. It will have a lot of important information, and that will be followed by a email directly to your family sometime between Friday afternoon and Sunday. As always, you can contact me directly if you need support. I can't wait to continue partnering with you to make for an awesome learning year.